Hello, people of Connecticut, my fellow nutmeggers. I am here with the amazing John Anderson. And because Selena did not eat great food yesterday because I was at a birthday party, and I suspect it had MSG in it or something like that, which only occurred to me afterwards, and my body's not real happy about it. Thank goodness it wasn't actual food poisoning, but I'm tired.
That's
So,
why I just never leave the house anymore. So I don't like getting sick or seeing people.
oh my God, I didn't realize I was speaking to a fellow introvert.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I'm labeled an extrovert by nature, but I have introvert tendencies where like I can play the social game and be that outgoing person, but I prefer to just not have to put on a show
Hmm.
when I don't have to. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and you've certainly been more in the professional world than I have, but I'm a severe introvert. Like, for those who are into astrology, it's like it's all over my chart. It's like
Yeah,
lots of alone time. Really need a lot of alone time. Says right
yeah.
in all the different houses, needs alone time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I for me, I was in sales for so long that you can't be an introvert in sales, and I'm like, well, you can because you know that you don't know this person and you're never going to see them, so it becomes a lot easier when you kind of get in that
Hmm.
mindset. But my wife's always like, if we go out, she's like, you could talk to a wall. I mean, you just find a way to talk, like to get into these conversations. So she's like, so you're definitely an extrovert. I'm like, I don't think I like try to get in the conversations. I hear something interesting and I'm like, oh, that's funny. I was just thinking about that or I was just researching that. So I kind of like somehow weasel my way in, but it's not like I'm looking to start conversations. It just so happens like uh they're talking about something that I'm familiar with. So why don't I share my opinions? If that makes me an extrovert, then so be it. But I still prefer to not have to talk to people. It's always easier to talk to a stranger than somebody you know as well, I feel like, because
Oh, no strangers. No.
yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah, my husband's like that though. And I absolutely lean on him when we're at parties or something like that.
Hmm.
It's like it's unusual for me to go and talk to somebody by myself. And
Right.
for anybody who's met me through the MAGA movement, they probably don't believe me because I fake it really well.
Yeah. Fake it till you make it. That's what they always tell you,
Yeah. I
especially in the professional world.
well, yeah, and I probably just don't have enough experience doing that to have your attitude about it. So,
Yeah, well, I'm one of these people that I prepare ahead of time before I go to a social gathering. So I
um,
have the talking points in my head like,
okay,
okay, I can talk about this because it's like current. That way it's not like as performative. It's more like
okay.
I'm just having the conversation that I already had in my head 3 days earlier. And as soon as we get there, I'm like, all right, it's time to go. And my wife's like, we just got here. It's like, yeah, well, okay, fine. But I'm in that mentality where like, okay, I just have to get through my talking points with these people and then I can leave. So the sooner I get this stuff over with, the sooner I can get out of there. So I act like an extrovert, but in reality, I'd rather be at home.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, who home is where it's cozy. You can put on your slippers,
exactly, exactly,
there's food there.
exactly. Food that I can trust because I never eat food
Ah,
when I'm out at picnics or barbecues because I
okay.
just don't. I don't know. It's weird. It's like my generation. We were always like taught to bring food with us when we go to friends or families' houses, and now it's like we just know not to trust food that other people make because you're not seeing it.
Ah.
And I've seen so many videos of people doing really disgusting things
Oh boy. Oh,
that
yeah, sometimes ignorance is bliss. I'm so sorry.
yeah, yeah. So I just don't eat unless I know that it's like a pre-prepared food from like a restaurant or something at these places, because I don't know if they left the egg salad out for too long, right? Like you never know if you're gonna get into something and then deal what you're dealing with right now.
Yeah, well, yeah. And of course, I that mine was from a restaurant. It's really interesting generationally, the generation before mine, because I'm Gen X, I'm like early Gen
Hmm.
X, I'm Gen X. And
Yep.
it's like most of the time, everybody, like girls all learned how to cook. Some of the guys, like my husband, he taught himself to cook. I had to teach myself to cook, but I didn't
Hmm.
learn until later. And so you had all of these skills, and it was like that was a thing that you did. But now people just don't have those skills so much anymore, unless they spend a lot of time deliberately learning them by watching YouTube, which, by the way, is a great resource,
Right, right.
you know? So,
Yeah. And I was fortunate, like I feel like it's actually a political thing with a lot of these families too, is like if you come
mhm,
from a conservative traditional background,
mhm.
you're gonna learn how to do a lot of this stuff because
Yeah,
that's what is like pushed onto you is like don't rely on other people, learn how to do it yourself. And a lot of people that I know that are conservatives are like, I learned how to do this off of YouTube.
mm,
I was shown the basics when I was a kid by my parents, and then as I've gotten older and started to do it more, you get better at it, and you go to YouTube as a great resource to teach you new ways.
yeah.
So I was taught at like 12 years old how to cook dinner and do laundry and do all this
Damn,
stuff.
good for you.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
and I was also told to learn a trade
Mm,
as a backup in case I didn't go into corporate America, so that
mhm,
I could always like fall back and start my own business and like a trade, whether it be landscaping or
mhm,
electrical work. So I had that dual approach to life where I
mm.
learned how to be a great landscaper at my first job, which I held for like 7 years while I was going through college. And then I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go sit at a desk.
Mm,
So I could always like fall back on starting up a business and do that,
mhm.
or I could use my education and get a job that way because that's what my dad always said is like you have to have as many options as possible
So
when
sensible.
it comes to being an adult.
That is so sensible. I had one track going up. I was going
Hmm.
to college. There was no question I was going to college. And, I had high IQ. What else, I mean, that was just there wasn't ever any other option.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
we could have a whole conversation about schooling system, and I don't call this it's a schooling system.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah, indoctrination or whatever it is. I mean, yeah, and it's interesting because like I'm also a high functioning IQ individual, but I also understood like a lot of people with high IQs get depressed really easily. I
Yeah.
mean, we have some of the
Mhm.
highest depression in our IQ levels, and it leads to a lot of suicides or serious mental health issues. So I I had to look at it like I if I'm gonna go work somewhere, I'm gonna be the smartest person in the room.
And get used
Uh
to it, live
yeah,
with it.
yeah. But also if I ever don't want to have to be that, I
Mhm.
can go work for myself and then I only have to rely on myself. So
Yeah.
like that's why I'm good at individual sports, right? Like I can play tennis because I don't have to rely on a teammate. As soon
There
as
you
like a teammate comes in, I'm like, "Oh, this guy's an idiot," or they
go.
don't know what they're doing. They don't mix well because like I understand things on a level that most normal people don't understand them. So
Mm.
when they're not there, I always forget like it's probably because I connect the dots a lot faster than most people. So I'm just like, I can't do it. I can't work with these people because they are just so far off of where I am mentally that
Mm.
I have to work for myself. And that's why I owned a business in insurance for so long is because not only was I good at it, but it was very technical and
Mhm.
policy driven through like governance and
Mhm.
compliancy that I didn't have to worry about the sales as much because it came natural. And then it was just becoming the person in charge and not having to really force people to have all these different skill sets around me. And it was just like, I just need you to do this. If you're good at that, that's fine. It's
Mhm.
as soon as you start to stretch them thin and try and push them into directions that they can't do things, that's when I get upset because it's like, why aren't you able to do this? Because I can do all of this stuff.
Mhm.
And I think that's a real problem that my generation has is we're so arrogant when it comes to that. Like we think we can take on so much, and in reality, you might be able to, but you shouldn't. Oh, I got a little one coming out here.
We got
Hi.
a guest. We have a guest. Well, for a minute.
Oh, hold
Half-
on. I gotta shut my camera off.
Okay, go for it.
Give me some. Ma, can you get her?
We had a little guest.
Yeah, well, with her diaper falling off right now, and now she's crying. That's why I had to shut my
Aw,
camera off.
little tidbit.
She, all right, she's gone. Sorry about that.
I
Don't
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 think
need
it was
her to
fine.
appear naked anywhere online with the amount of weird people there are.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. No, good call. Good call, man. So. So I had this so I wanted to share something that happened a couple weeks ago, and I've already had this for the listeners. I've had this conversation with Jason, but I
Hmm.
also wanted to have it with Jay because A, different generation, B, very different person.
Sure.
And
Yep.
I think these are conversations that we need to start having. Um,
Hmm.
so here was what happened. I was at the Pine Loft. And this actually goes back to last year when my first foray into any kind of MAGA conservative politics was I went to a dinner at the Conservative Women's Forum. And
Okay.
I went with a friend and, we marched in. I'd never been to one of these things before. And we went right in. And I always sit right in the front so that I can, if I want to ask a question, I can, get people's attention.
Hmm.
And so we marched up to a front table and plunked ourselves down. And I didn't really notice there were a couple people sitting there. And I look and I realized that we plunked ourselves down next to a trans woman. Um, she had a companion. The pronouns kill me. So if I
Hmm.
trip over that, just forgive me. Um, and so he was sitting next to me, very large man dressed as a woman who looked very much like a man dressed as a woman.
Hmm.
And then next to him was a person who looked like, who was presenting as female, but an unwell female, like very like pinched features,
Okay.
clearly wearing a wig. And I thought, oh, does this person have cancer or something like that?
Hmm.
Figured out later after the event but it didn't quite, it's like it was bothering me because this person wasn't presenting like someone who physically had cancer. They were very
Hmm.
bouncy and open and dramatic. And
Theatrical.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it didn't click. It didn't click
Uh-huh.
until I got home that, oh, that was a man who had a bunch of facial surgery
Hmm.
and potentially a chest job and that sort of thing.
Right.
So, anyways,
Gotcha.
so the masculine looking trans woman had actually run for a place, one of those many empty seats that we have in Connecticut, that
Hmm.
the Connecticut GOP has made no effort to fill the space. So this person had run from one of those seats, and it was like, well, at least somebody's doing it. Great.
Right.
And from my because I was raised liberal, I've been a libertarian. I'm like, however you want to dress is fine. I don't care.
Hmm.
Not a big deal to me. So then when I was at the gathering in Berlin at the Pine Loft,
Hmm.
probably a month ago now, these two showed up again. I didn't run over to introduce myself because I busy and not at all and ambivalent. I'm
Hmm.
ambivalent. I'm ambivalent. And then I ended up having a nice long conversation with, as it turns out, the lady from the article who wrote the article that I sent to you. And
Hmm.
she was very clear that she did not think that these people belonged in the MAGA movement. She felt that it would hurt the brand, that it was, that it was very problematic. And I was, and I'm still like, I, I'm over here and I'm over there. I'm still making
Hmm.
arguments on both sides of my head on this. And
Right.
um, so I wanted to know what you thought of that, first of all. Did you have any questions about that? Um,
Okay.
so
Um, I mean, it's a sensitive topic, right? Just
it sure
because of
is.
the day and age we're in where we don't want to get canceled or anything like that. And I think there's a correct way to approach this as a conservative, and that's to look historically at what the Republican Party has been about, which has always been about treating people that want to be a Republican and show those principles and values, regardless of their sexuality, um, or gender or whatever. I don't know the correct term, and I'm not involved in that, and I don't want to say that I'm not
I don't
an
think we need to roll around in correct
right.
terminology too.
But I mean, you look at Caitlyn Jenner, one of the most famous Republicans in the country,
Hmm.
and it's a trans woman, right?
Right.
She's gone to the her kids have gone and spoken with Trump. I believe she has also gone and talked to Trump and been very outspoken. And there's also LGBT chapters of GOP throughout the
Hmm.
country, right? I know a lot of people that are part of the LGBTQ that are Republicans, and I mean, sure, they might be a little bit more social and liberal leaning, but it doesn't change the fact that for me as a conservative, I care about spending first and foremost, and I care about not putting the wrong values inside of kids' heads, like from an educational standpoint. So I've always been, and this could be a libertarian versus a Democrat or Republican perspective, but I've also been personal freedom is above all else what's great about this country. And if you want to go through with that, by all means, but do not force anything onto other people around you, right? It was the whole do nothing, say nothing part of the military, right? Which was fine, except these people just were like, oh, well, I gotta hide it. It's like you don't have to hide it. You
Hmm.
just don't have to throw it in people's faces.
Hmm.
I have no issue with people that are living that lifestyle being a conservative as long as they are a conservative and they don't want to push their agenda onto other people because no conservative I know pushes their agenda onto other people until they are questioned from a foundational perspective. So I
Hmm.
can see it from like a maybe, oh, well, religious, but the GOP hasn't really aligned themselves in religion in a while. Yes, we typically are Christian, but a lot of Christianity, especially the Catholic Church, they're more democratic than they are
Mm.
Republican at this
Yeah,
point.
there's that. There certainly
Um,
isn't any unity in people among people who call themselves Christians. There isn't anything consistent in terms of and of how they, how they're politically. There isn't
right.
much that's consistent politically.
And I think in terms of the brand of MAGA, one big issue I have is I don't like people blaming other people for their own downfall. And I
Mm.
feel like we've attracted so many people like that want to
Mm.
blame other people for their current situation. And that's just not the case. That's not being a Republican, that's not being a conservative, that's not being a MAGA person.
Mm.
MAGA is meant to be a little bit more libertarian, but also follow conservative practices on the financial spending side, and then be a little bit more social leaning on or liberal leaning on social subjects. So, uh, yeah, I might be young, but I also used to use certain derogatory words that you're not supposed to use. All my friends did, whether they're Democrat or Republican now. Like we all
Ginger
did it. We
guy.
all used, yeah, we all used to make fun of the kids that were a little off, right?
Hmm.
Um, and it wasn't right. And there's zero bullying policy or zero tolerance for bullying policies now. But as you grow up, you realize like whatever they're doing behind closed doors has no effect on me.
Hmm.
It's only when that crosses the line into the public space that I have an issue with it.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of conservatives that I know don't really care. They just don't want it brought to the public view where their kids come home asking questions
Hmm.
because that's when it gets dangerous. It's something that if they're gonna be in the Republican side, they have to understand like we don't a lot of people aren't gonna agree with you, right? And
Hmm.
if they can face that and say, you know what, these people hate me, but I'm still a Republican,
Hmm.
then what were we to say that we need to hate them? They know what they're gonna get for hate, and yet they're still willing to sit down and talk with us and vote on the same subjects as us.
Hmm.
It'd be kind of messed up to say that they are the people that are pushing this agenda because they're not. I don't think they even like the agenda being pushed the way it is. And I think
Hmm.
true trans people are starting to realize along the lines with gay and lesbian people that it has become a joke. It is not what it was. There's far too many people, and this seems to be something that people are forgetting too. There's a lot of men that go and change sex, not so much women changing their sex.
Right.
I think I think it's skewed one way. So what we're seeing and what the complaints are is like a lot of these people that are doing that is because they're perverts by nature
Hmm.
and they're only doing it to get access to things. And I know that this is like a common talking point and people are going to disagree with it, but the reality is there's stories published out there. There's actual interviews with these people that are admitting that they changed sex so they could go into the girls' room.
Mm,
Um, and that's why they're doing it. And I'm not saying that that's the case across the board. I'm just saying like people that truly feel that they are living in the wrong body, they aren't making excuses as to why they need to change sex. They just feel that way
mhm,
and they can't do anything about that. And I know I joke about opening up the institutions, right? The asylums, because that's what would have happened, right? All this stuff would have been a kibosh. And if you ever even remotely thought about anything like that, you would have immediately been put in an asylum. But there's also cross dressers, right? And
mhm,
I don't have an issue with cross dressers. I mean, a lot of them are Republicans, and it's like, I don't know. They're not doing it to offend anybody. They're doing it and they're going and they're staying in their separate safe space, which is like their cross-dressing bars or their gay bars,
mhm,
and they're having a great time. And my wife comes from Massachusetts, and she was originally more liberal leaning, so she has a lot more friends in that space than I do. But she's like, you go to a cross-dressing event, it's just fun.
mhm,
They laugh and have a good time, and it's not like they're pushing anything on you.
mhm,
I think the issues are with Republicans, it's becoming too mainstream where
mhm,
they're going into libraries dressed like that, and it's not appropriate for the kids that are there for them to
mhm,
be doing that. So I think personally, my generation, we don't care as long as you are not throwing it in our face and trying to persuade us that it's acceptable on a mass scale because that it goes against the norm. It's what you call a taboo in sociology. You have norms, you have taboos. It is a taboo behavior that we are accepting of, but we do not need that taboo behavior to be brought into the norm
mhm.
stage of society.
Okay. Yeah, that you know what, Jay, that I think you said that really well. It's um somebody's calling me and it's no one I want to talk to. Um so I didn't if I don't recognize the number, I don't pick up.
I'm
Um
I'm the I'm the same way. It's the introvert, right?
yeah, well, it's the I don't want to talk to the salesperson thing,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
basically.
This or the scammer, yeah.
Or the scammer, that too. I get a lot of that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, I agree that I don't want it to be normalized. And I think
Mhm.
that is my concern. What was very interesting was that the because the trans man who had clearly had some surgery, she was there having her picture taken with one of the candidates that was there speaking because there people come to these things, candidates come to these things and speak to, you know, it's a chance for them to speak to a bunch of MAGA people. And
Mhm.
I'm not because I didn't recognize that who this person was, and the candidate may have felt exactly like you. It's like whatever, it's a vote. They also may not have recognized this person as a trans person because I didn't off the fact. So I mean, I
Right.
think if you can pass, that certainly is okay. I'm still, people, I think that, and I've actually spent some time talking to, you know, it's like I apparently have a couple of trans people like in my life, you know, people that we've known for a long time who are just like, oh, here's an opportunity because it was very easy to have this happen.
Mhm.
It's very easy to get the surgery in the last couple of years because it used to be that you had to, you know, if you were going to have any kind of medical intervention, you had to go, you had to do this, you know, you had to live as the other sex for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it got really easy, you know, for a little while there. And I think it's going to go back to being, you know, difficult again.
Yeah.
So you know, so I did spend some time talking and what you said about you think conservative people don't care, and I think that's completely valid. One of the trans people that I interviewed, which is not anybody, he used to live in Connecticut, and he doesn't care if you call him he. Uh,
Mhm.
he's just like, this is who I am, and this is who he's always been. And he was suicidal before he got the surgery, and now he's not suicidal, and he's perfectly
Right.
happy. And he works, he does sound in a biker bar in the middle of the country. So
Yeah,
and
and
they don't care. They don't care. They just
right.
have, hey, what's up? You know?
And those are some of the deepest seated conservatives are those biker
Hmm.
kind of gangs in those bars. It's like
Yeah.
that's as macho and conservative as it gets. And if they don't care,
Yeah.
then why do I care?
Right.
Right? And not only that, but if they want to vote Republican, then that means that we're doing something right on our side,
Yeah.
right? It's that they're willing to go against their social beliefs
Hmm.
because of how we are approaching the world. So I, I think if you still hold those thoughts, it's because you might have bigger issues going on than you're willing to admit out loud.
Hmm.
And I don't like to say that, but there is a lot of racism, there is a lot of xenophobia, there's a lot of the isms and the obias for a lot of these people on the right. And I think it's because we've gathered so many people from the left that have felt that way. And
Okay.
we
Okay.
laugh, but if whenever you hear about, oh, black people shouldn't have to get IDs because they don't know how to or they don't
Oh
have access to
Lord.
the internet. That's not people on the right, that's people on the left, right? That's
Yeah. Yeah.
like there's African Americans that have gone out with a camera and a mic, talk to people, and they've been like, which politician said this? And they're always like, oh, it's Trump, and nope, it was
It
Biden,
never
or nope,
was.
it was Harris, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, there's no way they said that. It's like, well, that's the case, right? So,
Mhm.
um, once those people start to vote our way, that's when all these issues kind of come to light. But I don't know any conservative that is racist,
Mhm.
personally. I don't know anybody that cares about anything. It's really, are you a good human being? Do you believe in the same stuff that I believe in terms of how to go about living life, which is how to be successful and hating on the government for taking taxes? Because if that's how you are, then I don't care
Mhm.
anything about any other, I guess, physical characteristics.
Mhm. Yeah.
But and maybe it's because I'm younger. I don't know.
Well, I generally I think my generation doesn't care particularly either. It's interesting because I think, this is kind of a when I think about, conservative versus liberal, and by liberal, I don't mean the left. I mean,
Mhm.
by liberal, I mean the classical definition of liberal, which we call libertarian. In Europe, they call it a liberal, but it means freedom of speech. It means the values that
Yes.
we hold in the Constitution. And mind your business and
Bill
don't,
Maher
yeah.
is the example of what a liberal is.
Mhm.
Because when Bill Maher starts to sound good to a Republican, you know something's wrong, right? But a lot of Republicans, they respect Bill Maher because he's honest and he's a classic
Yeah.
liberal.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
and he agrees a lot with the right, and he's like, I don't want to, but like they're not wrong,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well,
So
he's willing to take a step back with his emotions and listen to the logical argument and figure out where his emotions are banging. I still
exactly.
wish he'd vote Republican. But hey,
Well, he's defended Trump, right? And as much as he's joked about Trump, he also defended him because he went and he met with Trump and
that's right. Yes.
he had that whole day with Trump and he's like
He's a
he's
good
not
guy. I liked him.
yeah, like I hate to say it, but I liked him. It goes against my better judgment, but it's like, but you know what?
That was pretty
That's what it
funny.
comes down to. And I think that's the issue is the loudest people in the room are not right. And
Mm.
that's what we're dealing with right now is the loudest people
Yeah,
in the room. And
absolutely.
and the quiet ones like Bill Maher or us or Jason or anybody else that you know that doesn't scream and yell about being right, those are the true voters. This whole leftism versus fascism attempt on the right, it's like that's not true politics in our country. That's just oh, I want to call it ideology versus actual
Mhm.
political beliefs.
Mhm.
And that's what we're getting so skewed on, and that's how millennials see it is I'm not a straight left person or a straight right person. I mix and match from both sides, but I'm
Mhm.
never going to go this far out or this far out on the spectrum because that just goes against who I am as a person.
Mhm.
And I think like a lot of the people that are truly fascist are the ones that um are, are the Nazis, right? The skinheads, but
Mhm.
they're on both sides, right? So
The tendency to want to control other human beings takes lots of different forms.
right, right. And you can look at all these like these graphs where they have them like this, and then you're like up
Mhm.
here or over here.
Mhm.
And that's all bullshit because that's putting this on a spectrum that just isn't a true spectrum.
Mhm.
It's more of a three-dimensional thing. And if anything, I think using circles like a Venn diagram will be a better
Mhm.
mix of this, where you have some beliefs here, here, and here, and then where
Mhm.
do you fall that way? And I think part of it is like these loud voices are trying to control politics, and it's confusing everybody where we feel like we have to be this or that, and in
Mhm.
reality you don't have to be anything. And if you listen to the loud voices, you're gonna make yourself go depressed
Mhm.
because you're gonna start believing in stuff that you don't actually believe in. And
Mhm.
then that's why they call it being woke, right? You wake up
Mhm.
one day and you're like, I can't do this shit anymore.
Mhm.
And that's what we're seeing, and that's why so many people came over to the MAGA group to begin with, is because they woke up and they're like, I can't do this. I need,
Mhm.
because MAGA, I feel like, is more of that classic liberal,
Yeah, I agree.
neoconservative,
I agree.
right? It's the mass of the country,
Mhm.
and the people that are still voting left, I think they're just, I will never vote right. And because Trump was a Republican, they don't want to vote for him. If Trump was a Democrat, they would have voted for him, right?
Well, he used to be a Democrat. That's what they said.
Right,
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure they
right,
ever knew that because, admittedly, there's plenty of people in New York who hated Trump when he was a liberal. So
right,
when he was a Democrat.
right,
So it's
right.
like, he's just, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan. It's like he's a bit bombastic. His sense of humor didn't, it's just like, oh, you're just weird, you know?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
But again, like you had mentioned that somebody that you had talked to says that they're bringing down the brands. What is the brand of MAGA? What does it matter to anybody? Like closed doors, you do what you want, right? That's your life. Live it how you want. Just don't force me to see it or have to hear about it because I'm not somebody that's going to go out there and do PDA, public displays of affection, with my wife. I just think it's tacky, because I don't need to prove to the world that
Right.
I'm married or that I'm straight.
Right.
I think that's the issue, is like
Hmm.
people don't like how loud and theatrical people from that side are,
Hmm.
because it's like they're trying to prove it that that's how they actually are, and
Right.
it's more performative, as you had mentioned, than it is authentic.
Hmm.
And that's one thing, is like millennials are very good at gauging authenticity, and
Mm.
that's because we learned it from the prior generations, from the boomers and from Gen X.
Hmm.
So we are going to be the most sophisticated at authenticity and bullshit. I think the Gen X are going to be a lot more brunt and in your face about it, but we are a little bit more toned to it, where like
Yeah.
we can mention it, and it's like, rather than saying anything out loud, it's just like, well, let's avoid that person, right? Um, and and I think that's just kind of like, I'm not going to say millennials have it down pat, because we don't. I just think that Gen Z is dumber than us, unfortunately. That the stats have come out where it's the first generation to not surpass the previous generation in terms of intelligence and ability. And I think for us, like that means millennials are the stopping point. We have to fix Gen Alpha, and
Hmm.
because we can't do anything to help Gen Z.
Yeah.
So we have to push as much down from boomers and Gen X to alpha and beta, I think now, as possible to get that normalcy back. Because Gen Z, I think, was the loudest group for so long, and they
Mhm.
grew up in this mentality.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the most dangerous thing that happened in our
They
country.
they had a lot of handicaps, Gen Z did.
Right.
A lot of them apparently they are the ones that there are the most conservative generation right now, which is very interesting. But you have
They
to
are.
too, it's like in your face COVID, especially the younger ones.
Yeah.
In your face COVID, crippling social media,
Hmm.
ton of vaccines. Like, oh my
Right.
God, it's like the sheer physicality of what that kind of damage does to you. And it's like it messes with your brain because
Yeah.
if you have all of that garbage in there, it makes it really hard to think. Now, there are ways that you can detox from this stuff. Anybody who's Gen Z listening, there's ways to fix it. Go look for it. It's out
Hmm.
there. There's ways to fix whatever bad stuff. And we're coming from somebody who grew up with severe depression. And
Yeah.
looking back on it, I understand a lot of it had to do with that schooling thing.
Yeah.
and complete lack of skills. So get on the YouTube and start learning shit now because you'll thank yourself later.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny though because didn't they used to say that if you were smart, you'd vote Democrat? They always had the most educated and
Oh,
smart people
oh,
voting on that
mm.
side. And
I
then I'm
don't know.
like,
The one I always heard was if you're young and you vote Republican, you have no heart, and if you're old and you vote Democrat, then you have no brain.
right.
So that's the one
Yeah.
I've heard. So I haven't heard anything else.
I think well, it's funny because a lot of those guys on the '90s SNL, like Adam Sandler,
Hmm.
Rob Schneider, David Spade, Chris Rock, even they're all Republicans.
Uh-huh.
And they always said like, grow up liberal, but the older you get, the more conservative you get
Well,
because you're
you
just
start
tired of
seeing
other
what you
people.
have to lose.
Right. But I think with Gen Z, they've been coddled and they've been pampered by parents that think that it's acceptable to give them participation trophies and
Mm,
that let's listen to our kids
mhm.
complain about this and come up with all these different diseases or sicknesses that they have. And it's like
That's a
that's
big
just
handicap.
yeah,
That's a
and I
big
think that's
handicap.
why there's so many Gen Z people that are voting Republican is because they see that and they're like, these kids are weak and they're only going to hurt America.
Mm,
And the smarter ones are now on the right. Like I'm that's the shift that I've seen is more people that are educated are moving over to the right because they are more aligned with it.
mm,
And if you're educated, you probably have a good job, you're probably making decent money, and you're probably like, I'm tired of losing 50% of my paycheck to the government. So
mhm.
let's start voting this way for a little bit. But
Especially with what's actually happening with the taxes we hand over.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, so um but again, like e- every generation has been handicapped in some way and I think we need to focus about what's going on in our personal lives more so than we need to focus about what's going on in other people's lives.
mm.
And I think that's the best way to live, quite honestly. Um I don't know if that finishes answering the question, but
I think we've rounded that one out pretty well. I think
okay.
that's pretty good. So, yeah, we did have something else we could talk about, but I'm not sure that I have the brain for it today. So,
Yeah, we can discuss that on Tuesday.
yeah, I think that'll
That's
be
fine.
good. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
with that one, it's going to be a little bit about government transparency, and I'm going to try and put together something with a little more clarity. And as much as it's fun to talk about current events, I think we need to
Mhm.
start talking a little bit more philosophy of how we need to run our government and our lives.
Right.
That's we got some problems here that we didn't have when the country was founded, and we got to figure out how to fix it. So
Yeah.
this is
Yeah,
big
that's
deal.
true.
Now, whatever generation we are, for those of us
Right.
older, it's like you got to fix it for the younger people because this is not the mess I want to leave behind, even if I did have kids. So,
Well, it's funny, and discussing Bill Maher, he had the joke recently, which was um, James Madison was 18 when he was part of the Constitution.
oh Lord,
Some of the other ones were 20, 21. A lot
yeah,
of them were under 25.
yeah.
And then he looks at the camera, he goes, "So what the fuck is your generation doing?" Uh, because these guys were
Mine was
founding a
smoking a
country.
lot of weed.
Right. And I think the joke was, oh, and when they first wrote the Constitution, all these guys were under 25, and he goes, and Biden was only 30, right? But, but I mean, it's true, right? Like that generation at such a young age
Yeah,
wrote the Constitution, founded a country, and then we have people afraid of their own fucking shadows.
yeah.
So the government is not helping that fear. And if you rely on the government, then that's the biggest problem. People that rely on the government
Yes.
is causing all of this fraud within the government because they're willing to look the other way because
Mm,
they're getting their
I
pocket
remember.
greased. So,
And just to comment on because and the thing that's important to remember with our founders is they had an actual education.
right.
Then they read the classics,
Hmm.
they were reading Plato and Aristotle and the Bible and various all these different things, and they were part of their education was that they were discussing ideas the way we are talking about them now.
Right.
And they had to, they had to defend their ideas against, they had a teacher who was like, well, what do you think about this? And they had to
Yeah.
talk about it. And this is these, I've been reading the classics because I want to know what Plato said. I want to know where the ideas come from.
Hmm.
And that's been incredibly valuable. Just, it's like you have to wrap your brain around the different language a little bit.
Yeah.
What I personally find helpful is to listen to it on audio, and then I can play it back if I need to and kind of contemplate it a little bit.
Especially Plato's what Homer or the Odyssey. Homer's the Odyssey.
Homer's The Odyssey. Yeah, I've listened to
Yeah.
it a couple times now. So yeah,
I think
the Iliad. Now I've listened to the Iliad,
mm,
not all of the Odyssey yet. And
I I think the one that I enjoyed the most was Allegory of the Cave because it was about imprisoning
yep,
yourself.
yep, yep.
I think was that Plato? I think that was
That was
Plato.
Plato. Yeah, that was Plato.
Yeah.
And I've come to the conclusion that we're not in Plato's cave, we're in Plato's sub-basement.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
We're at least 3 levels away from seeing that sun, I'll tell you that much.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like shadows of shadows of shadows and like, oh my God. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
But
it's
we can save that for Tuesday. I mean,
let's save that for Tuesday. It's like the one I'm reading, well, I'm going through right now, I'm going through actually I'm going my second turn through Ovid's Metamorphosis. And I'm reading Augustine. So Saint Augustine.
okay.
Oh,
M
that's
Metamorphosis, was that was that is that a classic or is that
yeah,
more
that's
like
yeah, that's yeah,
50s?
that's a classic. It's Ovid. He was
Okay.
a Roman poet, and he had probably a large library of the classic Greek stories, some of which we don't have the originals of anymore because they're really old. And
Hmm.
so some of the stories he told, some of the sources for the mythology that we know was him. Some of them go back further to Homer, for example, or Hesiod. But Ovid is probably the most complete catalog we have of those stories. And
Yeah.
his writing in the translation is actually very beautiful. Um, so
It's like Paradise Lost. I read
mm,
the
I have not gotten through that.
oh, it was phenomenal. One of my favorite pieces, and I think I read some, but I can't remember who did the interpretation, but it had the old English or what is it,
Mhm.
the Canterbury English,
Mhm.
and then the translated version.
Mhm.
And I read it in college, and I was like, this is such a fascinating idea and
Yeah.
perspective, especially on religion.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but when you said metamorphosis, I'm thinking the metamorphosis, which was the story about that guy who woke up as like a bug.
Oh, right, right. Yeah, that's different. That's much, much,
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
much
yeah.
later. So,
Yeah.
I can't
Because I was
remember
like,
the
wait a
name of it.
second. I've
Yeah.
read that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was early 20th century.
Like I think 1915 is what I'm seeing.
Okay. All right.
Um, yeah, but I mean, this guy, he was German, which means that this was probably Germans love to base stuff off of prior fallacies and
Uh,
stories. So this was most likely
Jay,
rooted.
that is what storytellers do. And I
Yeah.
speak as somebody who writes fiction, is that all stories, a good story, and our brains are designed for that. This is what I'm
Hmm.
actually studying, is like this is what our brains are designed to do, is we organize our lives around a story. So what story are you organizing your life around?
Right. I.
And those stories repeat. Shakespeare totally ripped off stories left, right, and
Oh
side.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Canterbury Tales, all of that. Romeo and Juliet came from Ovid.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. So it's like if it's a good story, feel free to use it.
Yeah.
So
I
nothing wrong with that. Just do a good job.
personally, I base my life off of Beowulf.
Okay. I love it.
Yeah.
Kill the beast. Here
Yeah.
we go. Protect the tribe. Kill the beast. Do it.
Exactly.
I think that's an
Yeah.
excellent choice.
Yeah. Oh man.
All right, my dear. Are we done? Are we there?
I think we're there. Yeah. Till
Okay.
Tuesday.
All right. Sounds good. All right. This has been fun.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everybody. And I'm sorry we were a day late. Like I said, I had a birthday party to go to. So, which it was a nice time, but the food was, yeah. Anyway, I hope you all have a
Questionable.
great evening. Take
Yeah.
care.
Bye.
Bye.